Most of us think the story of the origin of humankind is pretty simple, right? But the truth is much more complicated than that. It wasn't a straight line, but more like an intricate network of long, lost members of the AHN family. And today we're going to explore one of the most mysterious branches of that network. Harvest teach-in Denisovans. One could say they are a ghost in our own family tree. Everyone knows the Neanderthal people, right? But what if I told you that there's a ghost in our family tree? Yes, a ghost in the truest sense of the word. This is an extremely mysterious group of ancient people whose existence we were completely unaware of for decades. And guess what's the most amazing thing? The evidence about them is hidden in an unexpected place within the DNA of some of the people who are still alive and well. Look at this chart, it's truly terrifying. Some modern human groups, particularly the Melanesians and the Ida people in the Philippines, have up to 5% of their DNA that is not of modern origin. People in mainland Asia have slightly less, around 0.2%. So where did this extraneous DNA come from? That's the genetic trait of the ghost we're talking about. An echo from a distant, profound past. Okay, so we have a clue, and it leads us to the first part of the story of searching for the ghost in our own DNA. What's so great about this? This hunt for Danny didn't begin with digging, but rather in a laboratory with test tubes and state-of-the-art equipment. Here's what happened. When geneticists analyzed the DNA of modern humans, they noticed something was off. A mysterious component just lurks in the genome. It didn't match any ancient human group they had ever known. They knew for sure that there must have been another group of people, but unfortunately, there were no fossil specimens to prove it. Thus began a deduction based entirely on genetic clues. So where was this genetic riddle finally solved? Where did the first physical evidence come from? Yes, the answer comes from a very cold and remote place far away in Siberia. And in 2008, in a place called the Denisova cave in the Mountains of Siberia, archaeologists found an extremely small bone sample. It's just a small piece of a child's little finger bone, so tiny that almost no one would notice it. It was named Denisova 3. At first, everyone thought it was just an ordinary bone, but no one suspected that this tiny bone sample held a secret that could completely change everything we know and the history of humankind. The question is, how could such a tiny bone tell such a profound story? The secret lies in something called mitochondrial DNA, or empty DNA. Let's just use it like this for convenience. This is a special type of DNA that is passed from mother to child and remains virtually unchanged. It's like a genetic thread that allows scientists to trace maternal lineage back into the distant past. And this is the moment of explosion. When scientists analyzed the MTNI from that bone sample, the results were unbelievable. It doesn't fit with modern humans, nor does it fit with tall Neanderthals. It's completely different. They discovered a third branch, an entirely new branch on the human family tree that no one had previously known about. And they named this new group after the very place where they were found, the Denisovans. So we now have DNA evidence. We know they exist, but a huge question remains: how did the Denisovans cultivate them? Just think, how could you possibly imagine an entire face with only a few finger bones and teeth? This task seems impossible, but gradually the pieces of the puzzle are starting to appear scattered across Asia. An extremely large molar tooth found in Siberia. Then a very strong jawbone was found buried on the Tibetan plateau. This proves they can live in places with extremely high altitudes. Then another tooth appeared all the way in Laos. Each such discovery reveals a little more about a species of human that appeared very strong and had an extremely large living area. And then, the biggest breakthrough came from a story that was almost unbelievable. A nearly intact skull was found by a worker in China back in 1933 and hidden in a well for decades. They call him the Dragon Man. It wasn't until 2021 that analysis confirmed something unbelievable. This is the skull of a Denisovan. Finally, the ghost has a face. Things became much more interesting once we had the skull. We can place it next to the skull of a Neanderthal for comparison. Notice how the Denisovans had low, elongated skulls, unusually wide upper faces, and flat cheekbones. Completely different from the Nea people, Delentar had a face that protruded forward. They are clearly cousins, but they are two completely separate individuals. Okay, with all this evidence, the picture of the Denisovans has become much clearer. it turns out they weren't just a small group living huddled together somewhere. Not at all. They are a large, highly successful people with an astonishingly vast geographical area. Just looking at this list is enough to see, from the frigid caves of Siberia to the towering peaks of Tibet, and even the dense forests of Laos. Traces of them can be found in Taiwan and China. This demonstrates their extraordinary ability to adapt. With diverse environments across Asia, they were truly an important part of the ancient world. And they not only lived widely, but also lived for a very, very long time. This timeline suggests their existence lasted from at least over 200,000 years ago until around 32,000 years ago, an extremely long period of time. And during that time, they not only witnessed the world changing, but more importantly, they interacted with and met other groups of people, including our immediate ancestors. And it is this very point that makes the story more complicated and captivating than ever before. The old idea of a human family tree with branches growing separately and never touching each other. Yes, that idea completely collapsed after the Denisovan discoveries. This quote perfectly illustrates that. Instead of a tree, imagine human history as a river with many branches. These currents are essentially different groups of people who constantly meet, blend together, and then separate again. The Denisovans, the Neanderthal people, are ancestors. They are all part of that complex and beautiful flow, and perhaps the most shocking evidence is this. When scientists analyzed the genome of the Denisovan people in more detail, they realized that the Denisovan people themselves were also a product of interbreeding. Nearly 17% of their DNA comes from the Neanderthal people, but that's not all. About 4% comes from a super ancient group, some mysterious group of people even older than them. That's unbelievable. And if anyone still has doubts, this is irrefutable proof. The story of Dani. Scientists found another bone sample in the same Denisova. DNA analysis revealed it belonged to a girl whose mother was Neanderthal and whose father was Denisovan, a first-generation mixed-race child. This is living proof that cross-cultural exchange between these groups of people was not only possible, but it actually happened. And so we return to the starting point of this story. Heritage within ourselves. Encounters from tens of thousands of years ago are not something from the distant past. Their legacy is still here, preserved in the genetic language within the bodies of so many of us today. And these DNA segments aren't just for fun, they offer incredibly practical benefits. For example, Tibetans have a gene called APS1, inherited from the Denisovans, which helps them live comfortably in extremely high altitudes and low oxygen environments. Or take the Inuit people, for example, they have genes that help their bodies grow fat to protect against the biting cold. Papuans, on the other hand, possess unique immune genes that help them fight off local diseases. These could be considered genetic gifts, precious survival tools from the past. So what does that mean in short? Interbreeding between these groups of people is not a minor detail in history. No, it's an extremely important part of the human success story. By interbreeding with the Denisovan people, our ancestors acquired crucial genetic tools that helped them survive and conquer harsh, new environments across the planet. The story of the Denisovans truly shows that we still know far too little about our own past. If we can uncover a ghost in a family tree from just a single finger bone, that raises one final, truly fascinating question. How many more lost relatives are still lurking in our Na, just waiting to be discovered?